They made Cry for me. Thanks for watching. So what is all the fuss about Magdalena Bay, and why should you listen? I'm out here making such a big deal about this wacky duo from LA who have been gaining traction in online discourse for their complex yet remarkably delightful take on the genre of pop. Even in a genre that's been rediscovering its cool factor as of late, it still baffles me to see how Magdalena Bay broke through the way they did. So much they've become my favorite duo in all of music. They face the stigma of being too eccentric and gimmicky, even for a genre that's infamous for being diluted and formulaic, yet they continue to beat to their own drum, and add to a catalog so cathartic, so heart-throbbing, so mind-bending. I believe it's an all-time pop discography high-key. So consider this video a sort of Magdalena Bay starter pack, where I go through my favorite songs that I believe are perfect for first-time listeners.
You're listening to Magdalena Bay Mini-Mix Volume 1.
People are not that crazy about Magdalena Bay's pre-debut catalog, and we need that to change, okay? It had some sweet moments, but they definitely weren't afraid to experiment, and it gave all of these songs unique personalities. I mean, you don't just come out the gate making Ghost and try to act normal. This is their oldest song and they're already in 10 out of 10 territory. I heard that instrumental and immediately made the connection to 2007 Britney, Gimme More with the deep bass line and pounding kick drums, and it turns out that's exactly what they were going for. Britney Spears meets MGMT. Also that bridge where they strip everything back and Mika's at her most tempting before the synths burst into a massive explosion. Already one of my favorite parts of their whole catalog. From title alone, you'd think Money Lover would sound like yacht music, with this duo being from Miami. They have all the right to flaunt a flamboyant lifestyle, though they actually couldn't care less about all the big shots and the show-offs. They're just bored and poking fun at people obsessed with wealth. That bass is somehow making the average 80s Madonna song even more groovy, and you're gonna hear these saxophone parts really scatter throughout this early catalog. All these beats are basically Matthew winking at you, self-aware that he's obsessed with the 80s. Only If You Want It is another standalone single, one where the YouTube description literally has the definition of sexual cannibalism. You gotta love their sense of humor in this era. It's an infectious bop that's also an exaggeration of romantic gaslighting. Mika has contagious, flirty energy, but is also totally blunt, knowing this thrill is gonna fade in a heartbeat. This girl is obsessed with vandalism and freaking out. Doesn't look like it's gonna last, but it sounds pretty. The band would release their first 2 EPs around this time, Day Pop and Night Pop. One sounds more happy-go-lucky, and the other would go so hard during a late night drive. If I had to choose which is better, I'd definitely go with Day Pop. For the sake of familiarity, I have to give props to the Head Over Heels cover. I think Tears for Fears fans would be fascinated at how they turned this song into a banging dance pop remix without losing any of the song's core emotions. They basically put this song in an alternate universe. The way that Mika sings with command and floats all over the sped up melodies, it just does something to me, okay? This performance is a really fun way to show her range as a singer. Waking Up is a rare instance of Matthew doing lead vocals, and I'm surprised he doesn't do it more often. His woozy voice actually blends pretty well with Mika's harmonies, and I love their tender chemistry together. This is Magdalena Bay basically inventing serotonin. It's an 80s radio station's wet dream. Synth arpeggios and drum machines both crafting such a timeless instrumental. Listen to this song on an early morning car ride, roll the windows down, bask in the sunlight. You're not gonna regret it. I'm angry that Set Me Off didn't become a huge hit, and I have no shame in admitting that. They do this massive progression that's in almost every song of theirs moving forward. Matthew takes this sugary synth pop instrumental and then throws these roaring guitars straight out of a shoegaze song in the mix. Mika adds to the cleverness by doing the post-breakup obsession trope, singing about burning pictures while keeping custom t-shirts and still stalking his Snapchat for no reason. Cherry on top is one of their most underrated exploited hooks ever. I seriously can't get enough of this song. Night Pop has its fair share of chill vibes that they pull off so effortlessly. Redbone is exactly what you think it is. It's a Childish Gambino cover, one of his most iconic songs out there, and Magdalena Bay's take on it is pretty cold and distant. You don't find Mika singing a lot of R&B melodies, but all things considered, she sounded really comfortable here. This song flows perfectly with the retro futuristic lens, the way they process the vocals above those sudden synthesizer entries that slowly supplant the funkiness of the original. Pretty cool cover overall. The people who first discovered Neon absolutely adore it, and I don't blame them. There's a reason it's one of their earliest flagship songs. It gave them the passion to pursue music full time. It's funny how Matthew actually said that he didn't even know about Vaporwave as a concept and that the song accidentally fit that vibe to a T. It's one of their few songs where Matthew's voice actually overshadows Mika's for once. And it fits this super relaxing groove perfectly. And those saxophone parts from Claude and Louis make this song all the worthwhile. And to cap off a busy 2019, they released the first of 3 mini mixes, seamlessly showcasing their unique DIY style through an organized official track list. I'm admittedly not too crazy about all the mini mixes because they're not their most cohesive projects, though they do have some bangers. I think you get more out of these songs when you pair them with their music videos. Peep the green screens in every single one. Both Mine and You Wanna Dance are Matthew flirting with the hyperpop genre before he really went crazy with it. Fat bass lines, hella upbeat, hyper-processed vocals. You Wanna Dance is charming for what it is. Mine is probably their grandest song up to this point, and the best song on here. Also, why is Mika dancing on a burning car? I would go so much crazier for Afternoon in Heaven. If only it were like a minute longer. You can get immersed in its warmth. It's perfect for a morning pool party scene, and then unfortunately ends when you're expecting more. I'll also give a shout out to Turning Off the Rain and Nothing Baby for their incredible bass work. Now we're finally getting to the real heavy hitters. May I Raise You, their breakout moment, A Little Rhythm, and A Wicked Feeling, their first release under their new label, more specifically, their most popular song of all time, Kill Shot. It's insane that this became a thirst trap song circa 2021. Magdalena Bay saw an opportunity to hop on a trend, ran with it, and it's a big part of why they're so popular. I mean, fair enough. It's cool that they were a TikTok trend, even though it's not my thing. The regular version, though, oh my god! What kind of black magic did Matthew put on this instrumental? Everything melds together so seamlessly. The pounding drum loop, that riveting bass line driving the beat ahead, the most mesmerizing synth rhythm Matthew has ever produced, all enhanced by Mika's most enchanting performance to date. 100% a must listen. Don't worry though, this is definitely not a one-song project. Sonically, Venice really does feel like a prequel to Killshot, has the same kind of groove and catchiness, while also being more laid back. The band says it's their way of coping with the ever-increasing ways that the world may end, and they turned this dread into one of their most relaxing songs ever. Hey, you know, the Russians could be running roughshod over everything. Oh well, let's enjoy each other while we still can. Yes, I do actually like this more than How to Get Physical. I don't think it's as strong as the other songs here, but I can see why people like it so much. You can see how much more structured it is to be the radio hit of the project. With its more patient arrangements, Mika's vocals are airy and light at first, then it slowly builds underneath into this big house beat, and this ends up being one of their more easygoing choruses. I think stronger moments come in the run from Good Intentions to Oh Hell, and one of the more sadder moments on there is Airplane, which is more of a soft ambience to it. Mika wrote this song while she and Matthew were still in college. And while everyone was pursuing corporate jobs, they were long distance at the time, and they used the metaphor of catching an airplane to contemplate whether or not they wanted to take the gamble with music. It's one of the first examples of the growth in their pen game, and it's nice to see that they tinker with much deeper themes from this point on. Lastly, there's Mini Mix Volume 2, and without visuals, you probably wouldn't get it. I think it's their worst project, though you can find probably 1 or 2 songs worth a try. They made Sky to Fall on an entire 4-hour live stream. If you have the time, you can check that out. One of the best highlights of this entire mix, along with Body, which manages to be more enticing than it should be. The heavy, warped bass line drowns out Mika's voice, and yet she still finds a way to sound intergalactic. Apart from that, this mix is a not listen, though all those sonic elements show a lot of promise, and it makes a good transitional phase into their first proper full-length project. Words can't simply describe the enormous love I have for Mercurial World. I cherish every single opportunity to revisit it whenever I can. It tends to be overshadowed by its successor in Conversation, but my love for it never changes. I think it's definitely the Magdalena Bay project I've listened to the most, which is quite insane. If they were to address a few minor issues, I could genuinely consider it one of the greatest pop albums ever made. Personally, I mix parts of the regular and deluxe versions to create my own preferred custom track list, cause the deluxe on its own is kind of all over the place. Trust me though, there are no misses here, so let me tell you some of my favorites. I have to talk about both Dawning of the Season and Secrets Your Fire together, for one obvious reason, my favorite pop transition of all time. Both of these songs are just moments where I can simply tell you to let them speak for themselves. Mika glides through each playful melody with ease, and even Matthew comes in to remind you that you're listening to greatness. This elastic bass line blends in with what might be my favorite use of electronic percussion ever. I hate to sound dramatic, I'll never understand anyone who hates these two songs. Mercurial World is a monster of a title track that progresses wonderfully with one of my favorite all-around Mika performances with that soft and low-tone voice. Then she adds thicker, layered harmonies before that icy beat drop crashes into the mix. And just to add more familiarity, the outro has a Material Girl interpolation, which enters the song so naturally, it makes perfect sense for Mika. I also recommend the piano and strings version on the deluxe, which gives the song a whole new mood. Even if you don't know Magdalena Bay, you've probably heard the beginning before. It's in the background of a key moment of the Netflix show Wednesday. It's a phenomenal cinematic curtain call. I always imagine that the bridge is playing in the background of an epic coming-of-age montage. A cool touch is it narratively ties the album full circle. The idea where the end of the journey turns into another beginning, and it transitions perfectly when paired with the opener. Cherry is a song begging to break free from itself. Mika has a super vulnerable performance, detailing her difficulties in letting people come into her life while eagerly wanting connection. It's mind-breaking for a pop instrumental, stacking synth lines and rhythms until that sudden moment of sensory overload. It explodes, the drums slam in with full force as Mika is growing frantic in the outro. The lyrics are so rigid, yet it's one of Mika's most emotionally authentic moments. It's another song that has a piano and strings version, and it really demonstrates the beauty of the songwriting. Hysterical Us has this deceptively sweet chorus about going back to a relationship that's clearly running on fumes, and it numbs you to even consider going back, but temptation is clearly there. Paranoia is not something I'd usually associate with bubblegum pop, but it works here. Matthew does a lot of tasty keyboard work that keeps this instrumental moving, and it's especially effective in that chorus. I find myself humming the entirety of Something for Two a lot. It's one of the more bright and bubbly sounding songs, and it's really easy to get it looping in your head. I do, however, prefer the Cecile Believe version. I think it's an absolute necessity to hear that extended outro. A loud distorted bass creeps in before kicking it back to the last stretch, which now feels much more satisfying with all that build up. Also, it took me a while to say her name, but Grimes, Grimes, is one of Magdalena Bay's biggest inspirations, and it's clearly shown in You Lose. It's pure noise pop through and through. It's abrasive, loud, punchy. Those fuzzy guitars completely take over any bit of space they can find. Mika roars with this massive, angry energy, always grappling with the inevitability of failure. Hands down, the hardest hitting song on Mercurial World. Feel free to listen to everything, go check out the deluxe. Unconditional and All You Do are neat additions to the album. Almost every song is an absolute hit. Around this time before their sophomore release also comes the third installment of the mini-mix series. What I personally consider the best mini-mix and where their current sound really starts to take shape. Top Dog has one of their most cheeky and stadium-ready choruses, supported by a swaggering electropop bass. It's basically a goofy power trip, reminiscent of their pre-debut humor. I have no idea what the hell the music video is, and I don't know how I just noticed this, but Matthew put random dogs barking here and there. They switched to a more somber style with wandering eyes in order to capture Mika in the midst of a mental breakdown. It's the indie pop ballad of the mix, expressing Mika's paranoid intrusive thoughts really effectively. EXO's, probably their biggest sneak peek into what the future would hold, is definitely more industrial, turbulent riffs engulfing the mix like Mika is going through some sort of spiritual possession. This song is their shift toward a darker and more surreal sound, one that would define what is easily their biggest release to date. Do you guys remember my top 10 albums of 2024 video? Not long after I uploaded it, I went to check out some albums I missed out on and realized the list had aged like milk. But my biggest regret, by far, is not letting Imaginal Disc fully sink in and making it an honorable mention. Because this album is already being considered as an all-time pop classic. I wouldn't go that far yet, but I can't deny how bold and memorable it is. But hey, I did say it was intriguing and I was bound to give Imaginal Disc more chances. And guess what? It's now my 7th ranked best album of all time. Behold one of the most ambitious modern alt-pop records you'll ever find. If the word dystopia were an album, it would be Imaginal Disc. It's where they dive deeper into prog rock and psychedelic influences. This is easily their peak form when it comes to songwriting, production, and cohesion. It might be the most deserving pop album to become a cult classic. Every song deserves to be fully experienced, but if I have to narrow it down to lure someone into listening, here's what I choose. If you want accessibility, I'll immediately point to Image. It's an easy pick to get you stimulated into the core sounds of Imaginal Disc. You go from early 2000s lo-fi internet vibes to something straight out of a sci-fi horror film. You're gonna notice a lot more heavier indie-tronica. It sounds more extraterrestrial and ethereal, and narratively, instead of Mika being untainted, she's in sort of an identity crisis and has to resort to the Imaginal Disc to completely revitalize herself. This is true, and her goal is basically trying to reform her own image. Love is Everywhere is a slow moment of bliss in a tracklist that doesn't really allow you moments to take a deep breath. Apparently it reuses a Lil Yachty instrumental they originally co-produced before it became its own unique song. It's for sure one of the less dramatic songs on this tracklist. It has a hazy rhythm that feels very lightweight and straightforward, as it suggests that sincere love isn't limited if you're willing to stop overthinking, simply engage and be judged for it. If you want to see how Matthew's love for prog rock flourishes, go listen to That's My Floor, a very crucial moment in the narrative. If you tell me those guitar riffs don't nod your head, I'm definitely looking at you crazy. The band's grunge roots fit perfectly with True's choice in the song to pursue a messier and imperfect life rather than look for an impossible, idealized version of herself. That final post-chorus where Mika's bright voice is juxtaposed with a frenzied guitar solo feels like the song is literally ripping itself apart, and I can't help but go ballistic every time I hear it. It took me a while to realize how people need to fully grasp how beautiful watching TV really is, and that I'm sick and tired of this song being so easily overshadowed by the other flashier songs on here. It twists the narrative and nails its theme so perfectly. This instrumental mirrors this thought of being glued to your TV screen and rotting away. It's relaxing at first, then True cuts through the daydreaming with this voicemail. I imagine it's a better version of herself wondering how she got to this low point, Then the piano slows down and then it builds to a claustrophobic panic, realizing she needs to free herself from this state and confront the worst parts of herself to do so. My god, does that last chorus feel genuinely frightening when you put yourself in the shoes of the narrator. It's legendary for the fact that Matthew and Mika managed to delve deeper into a darker place and made this story more than some interstellar imagination. I thought hard about how I was going to talk about these two songs, Death and Romance and Fear Sex. Just like Dawning and Secrets, I can't separate the two. The only way to have this ultimate experience is to listen how they blend into each other. Death and Romance is a landmark song for the band, incredible piano and drum work, the synthesizers flutter all over the mix and sound so euphoric, and in the middle of all this noise, you can somehow dance to it? You wouldn't expect this to have such a deadly groove. True's desperate for romance despite also knowing how much heartache she feels. The songwriting is poetry with so many lines that stick. I give and you give till it's all that we have, you know nothing is fair in Death and Romance. The key change comes and the instrumentation turns into something colder, by melting into Fear Sex. Oh my god, where True finally realizes reality. All her pleas are for naught and she's left with nothing but herself. The transition may sound like bliss, but then each synth stab that hits you like a truck feels like True's exposed nerves taking over. You will be blown away every time the bridge comes on. That I can promise you. The best song on Imaginal Disc is easily Cry for me. Part of me was not joking in the intro. If nothing I've said up to this point has convinced you to check out Mag Bay, fine. But I'll be damned if you leave this video without listening to Cry for Me. This song's built up so well in the context of the story, and it's literally everything you want in an all-time climactic masterpiece. It's catchy, it's emotionally devastating, it takes everything from an all-time ABBA melodrama, and it still manages to sound bigger and bolder. This is where Mika reaches an all-time peak as a songwriter. From my understanding, this is True's most emotional realization. After completely falling apart throughout the story, being manipulated and disconnected from reality, is that she has no choice but to embrace the complicated fate of being human, which includes the desire to be validated, even in the worst of ways. I'll take all your thanks and all your sympathies. Make sure all this pain was worth it. Think of love when you remember me. It's evil in a way. Even when love ended in disaster, she wants to prove that none of it was meaningless. We may not be together, so let the memory of me hurt. Cry for me. When that outro comes in, sounding like the world is exploding in front of your very eyes, I don't know how I hold back tears. It's one of the greatest closings to a pop song I've ever heard. I know I might be putting it in conversations it probably shouldn't be in, but I deadass think it is in fact one of the greatest pop songs of all time. As far as their current line of work goes, I don't really need to go that deep into it, as I already made a YouTube short ranking every single one. Some would say they're just as good as Imaginal Disc, and I totally see the vision. I think there's definitely something for everyone depending on your taste. Most people really like Second Sleep, Human Happens, and This Is the World I Made It For You. Though I really do love Paint Me a Picture and Black Eyed Susan Climb. They're the two most graceful songs of the bunch in my opinion. It's nice to see they upped the budget for their music videos now. I thought about this comparison, and I was worried that it sounded too ridiculous. But then I heard this from a Turning the Tables interview.
I have to say this right to you guys right now, and I'm so excited. I have not been this excited about an album since that right there.
Which one?
Random Access.
Yeah. Great album.
That's a great album.
Magdalena Bay is bringing the excitement and pushing the boundaries of modern pop, the same way Daft Punk push the limits of EDM and house music. Attention to sonic detail, all-time catalog, they've gained an incredible following, they're that damn good. I wanted to make this to share some songs I like for a band that I've really grown to love as of late, and I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you're new here, join the Discord, literally one member away from 100 as I'm recording this. Let me know if you like this kind of video, subscribe, leave a like, comment, share. Thank you guys for watching, I'll see you next time, take care.
Shine.